Alright, welcome back to the New Sentinel. Today we're diving into a story that's been all over the headlines, one that, honestly, hits a bit different because of the names involved. We're talking about Rosie Roche. Now, for those who might not have caught the details, Rosie was just 20 years old, a student at Durham University, and, here's where the public interest really ramps up, a second cousin to Princes William and Harry. Her family tree is, well, it's royal through and through. Her grandfather was Edmund Roche, 5th Baron Fermoy, and her great-grandmother, Lady Ruth Fermoy, was a lady-in-waiting to the Queen Mother. That's not just a footnote, that's a direct line to the heart of the British monarchy.
Yeah, Chukwuka. And when you got that kind of bloodline, the spotlight's always on you, whether you want it or not. Folks forget these are real people, not just names in the tabloids. Rosie was more than her last name. She was studying English Lit, loved poetry, travel, all that. Faculty at Durham said she settled beautifully into university life. That's not just PR fluff. That's people who saw her every day.
And it's important to remember, too, that being born into a family like that comes with enormous pressure. I mean, I see it all the time. Young people in the public eye, their every move scrutinized. Rosie was described as creative, passionate about books, and from what I've read, she was a loving sister and daughter. Her obituary in the Yorkshire Post called her a darling daughter, an incredible sister. That kind of loss, it's not just a headline, it's a tragedy for a family and a community.
You know, Olga, that pressure you mentioned, it reminds me a bit of what we talked about in the military. Being in the spotlight, always having to perform, no room for mistakes. It's a different world, sure, but the intensity is real. And for Rosie, with her lineage, every little thing gets magnified. I mean, her great-grandmother was advising King Charles III during his courtship of Diana. That's history, but it's also a shadow that follows you around. Where was I going with this? Oh, right. It's easy to forget the human side when the royal connection takes over the narrative.
Exactly, Major. And, sometimes I think the public fascination with royalty, it's almost like what we see with celebrities or, heck, even military heroes. People want a story, but they forget the person. Rosie was a young woman with dreams, friends, and a future. That's what we should remember first.
All right, let's get into the facts because, honestly, that's where things get muddy in the public conversation. Rosie was born June 21st, 2005. Fast forward to July 14, 2025. She's found dead at her family home in Norton, Wiltshire. Her mother and sister found her while she was packing for a trip with friends. A firearm was found nearby, and the coroner confirmed the cause of death as a traumatic head injury. Police and the coroner both ruled out foul play, no suspicious circumstances, no third-party involvement. The inquest is scheduled for October 25th, so there's still more to come, but that's what we know right now.
Yeah, and Major, the way this was handled, it's textbook, at least from a law enforcement perspective. Evidence collected, statements taken, and the authorities were clear. No foul play. Sometimes folks want to spin up conspiracy theories, especially with a royal connection, but the facts are the facts. Firearm present, head injury, no sign of anyone else involved. That's what the coroner and police are saying, and until the inquest, that's what we've got.
But it's also worth noting how quickly the media jumped on this. Within a week, the Yorkshire Post had published her obituary, and by July 21st, every major outlet was reporting on the cause of death. I think about the families I've covered in similar situations, how the rush to publish can sometimes overshadow the need for accuracy and compassion. We have to be careful not to speculate, especially when the investigation is ongoing. The facts are clear, but the story is still unfolding for those closest to her.
And Olga, that's a good point. We've seen in past episodes, like when we talked about high-profile tragedies in the military, or even in politics, how rumors can take on a life of their own. Major, you mentioned historical parallels. I always think about how, in the past, the rush to judgment or the hunger for scandal has led to real harm. Here, the authorities have been pretty transparent, but the public's appetite for drama is, well, it's never ending.
Yeah, Chikwuka. And if you look back at other high-profile family tragedies, the lesson is always the same. Stick to the facts, wait for the investigation, and don't let speculation fill the gaps. It's not just about respecting the family, it's about getting it right. And honestly, that's something we could use a lot more of these days.
So, let's talk about the aftermath. The royal family hasn't issued a public statement, which honestly is not unusual in cases like this. Sometimes silence is a form of respect, or maybe it's just self-protection. But the academic community at Durham University responded quickly. The college principal expressed deep sorrow and offered support to students. That matters, because when a tragedy like this happens, it ripples out. It's not just the family grieving, it's friends, classmates, professors. The obituary in the Yorkshire Post painted a picture of a beloved daughter and sister, and that public grief is real.
Yeah, and you know, Olga, I think about the student body at Durham. Losing someone like Rosie, especially in such a public way, that's tough. The university stepping up, offering support, that's the right move. But the media, man, sometimes they just can't help themselves. They want a statement from the royals. They want drama. Sometimes the best thing is to just let the family grieve.
And Duke, it's not just the media. The public too, they want answers. They want closure. But as we've seen in other episodes, like when we covered the aftermath of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or the Supreme Court's recent decisions, sometimes the best thing is patience. Let the process play out. Let the people closest to the tragedy have their space. Compassion and responsibility, that's what matters most.
Yeah, and you know, as someone who's seen a lot of loss on and off the battlefield, sometimes the only thing you can do is show up, be present, and not try to fill the silence with noise. The media's got a job to do, but so do we as a society. Respect, patience, and a little bit of humility go a long way.
Absolutely, Major. And as someone who's covered a lot of public grief, I just want to say, if you're listening and you're affected by this story, reach out for support. These stories are about real people, and we owe them our empathy, not just our curiosity.
Well said, Olga. All right, that's all for today's episode of The New Sentinel. We'll keep following the story as the inquest unfolds, and we'll be back with more deep dives soon. Thanks for joining us. Major, Olga, Duke, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Chikwuka. Good talk, folks. Stay sharp out there.
Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves and each other.
All right, y'all, that's a wrap. Catch you next time on The New Sentinel. Out.